Now, what do you get when you have a film with stellar performances, breathtaking cinematography, a well-pulled-off Hitchcockian storyline filled with gore, hooks, and thrills galore, a mesmerizing soundtrack, and a tone that is so slick and cool that it makes this one of the most stylish horror movies, not just of this year, of last year, but ever made? You get a movie that barely anybody saw. Hi there everyone, and welcome to another weird, wacky, and hopefully wonderful, and as always, ridiculously belated review. Welcome to Den of Horror. Everything that I've said about this film, Last Night in Soho, is all of that and more. If you haven't seen it, go out and check it immediately. The film is well worth the watch and genuinely is one of the coolest horror movies that I've ever seen. The film got its name from a song by a group called Dave, Dee, Dozy, Beaky, Mitch and Titch song. I'm sorry if I got that wrong to the group and to the fans. That name is longer than the Green Mile. The film is set in the once notorious yet now very trendy suburb of London, Soho, and is about a young naive girl who travels all the way from the countryside to the bright lights of London in order to study fashion design. Our young wannabe fashion designer, convincingly played by Thomas and Mackenzie, soon discovers that she is not only able to enter modern day London, but London in the 1960s, where she somehow lives through this dazzling and mysterious singer seeking fame and fortune, brilliantly played by the always brilliant Anya Taylor-Joy. Last Night in Soho is odd, it's interesting, it's refreshing, but it's also something more. It's a dark homage to the glamour and the excesses of the swinging 60s. What starts out as this hypnotic, dreamlike, almost Alice in Wonderland-like experience soon turns into a sinister and bloody reincarnation of obsession, of greed, and death and murder. Released in 2021, I really believe that Last Night in Soho is a film not just for horror or thriller fans, but for movie fans. Anybody can appreciate Edgar Wright's dark and serpentine adventure into the cutthroat world of fashion, the grimy streets of Soho, as well as the alluring attraction of the 1960s. And by the way, if you've already seen this film, then let me know in the comments what you thought about it. Maybe you think that I was smoking something when I watched it, because I really enjoyed Last Night in Soho and I can't quite understand why I didn't do better. Now, while I was watching Last Night in Soho, I couldn't help but feel that maybe Edgar Wright was also harnessing some of his very own filmmaking influences, because you definitely get hints of Alfred Hitchcock, Roman Polanski, and even Quentin Tarantino. You see, this is the kind of film that if you had to find yourself in an argument with someone valiantly defending your beloved genre of horror, that you could hold this film up and say, you see, horror doesn't just need to be gory and violent. It can also be clever, slick, stylish, and mysterious. Not to mention bloody. Now, we'll shortly get to why I believe that Last Night in Soho ultimately failed at the box office. And please, folks, if you feel that you have anything to add to this conversation, feel free. I'm always interested to hear what you think. But before we do that, let me also tell you what I really loved about this film and why it's very quickly become, honestly, one of my favorite films in a very long time, and why, if you haven't seen it yet, you definitely should. Now, the first big plus is probably the most obvious. It's the cast. I mean, Anya Taylor-Joy. Can this actress actually give a bad performance? I mean, from The Witch to Split, The Queen's Gambit to The Northman, and soon to be Furiosa in the next Mad Max. I mean, and I don't want to make a big deal about this, but she personifies what is so appealing about Last Night in Soho. She is a mystery. She's an enigma. She is odd, yet beautiful. She is exotic, yet familiar. She is funny, but dark. But also, let's not forget the girl from next door who keeps this whole show together, Thomas and Mackenzie. She gives us, at times, very dark film, a pure and innocent lightness. I can't wait to see more from this actress, and in Last Night in Soho, she really brings her A game. And if that's not enough for you, then I ask you, what about the grizzled legend that is Terence Stamp? I mean, this guy always brings the goods, and in this film, he does exactly the same. But it's not just all of the film's stars, it's the rest of the cast too. Last Night in Soho, when it comes to performances, you simply cannot critique it. The directing is absolutely on cue. Even if Last Night in Soho didn't do so well at the box office, it certainly solidified Edgar Wright's reputation as a great filmmaker with mammoth talent. I really hope that he returns to the genre in the future. And let's not forget exactly who Edgar Wright is. I mean, this is the man who practically reinvented the zombie horror with the genre-defining masterpiece, Shaun of the Dead. And as for the film cinematography, I mean, come on, you're going to be hard-pressed to find a film that is more stylishly shot than this. Sorry. How often have we seen a good premise let down by a bad script? Last Night in Soho, awesome premise, brilliant script. Hitchcock would be proud. Tarantino would nod in approval. Roman Polanski would come right out of hiding. Bad joke. But the most impressive and also the unsung hero of Last Night in Soho, I believe, is the film's great soundtrack. Now, good soundtracks are a staple of Edgar Wright's movies. Baby Driver is just one example. And much like Scorsese and Tarantino, Edgar Wright is a master at using great music to enhance the overall allure of the film watching experience. And I'm happy to say, with its hypnotic, 60s infused psychedelic pop rock, Last Night in Soho is no exception. So after all of that praise, after everything that I've said, after the great movie that I believe this film to be, you must be wondering how the heck Last Night in Soho only managed to gross, apparently, $23 million off a $43 million budget. I mean, what, was no one going to the cinema? I mean, maybe Michael Myers scared audiences away in October of 2021. Maybe Antlers redirected the crowds. Hey, I mean, maybe everyone was waiting to hit the cinema once Spider-Man would swing by and break all box office records. Maybe the pandemic had something to do with it. But to be honest with you, I don't believe any of that had to do with Last Night in Soho's poor performance. I think it was something else. Now, in my opinion, Last Night in Soho's biggest flaw is that it suffers from being too good for its own good. Now, what exactly do I mean by that? As engaging and as interesting as I found it, and maybe you did too, I think that a lot of people might have felt that it was something of a stylish oddity, something that was just too difficult to place. Now, what I loved about this film might be the very thing that turned a lot of critics off. It's hard to define, and like a lot of Edgar Wright's movies, it's one that doesn't want to be lumped into a single box. It might have also been too horror for mainstream fans and also too mainstream for hardcore horror fans. You know, it's dark and sinister, but at the same time, it's also feel good and happy. It's got this unconventional plot structure, but yet at its core, it's a classic, simple fish out of water story. Possibly audiences and critics didn't quite know what to make of a dark and bloody yet grooving, feel-good British horror flick. However, I believe and certainly hope that this film will become a cult classic that finds a home with a particular audience. I just can't help but feel that this kind of creativity deserves to be seen by more people. Well, that's just about it from me, folks. Thanks for sticking with me until the end. If you have seen Last Night in Soho, let me know down in the comments what you guys thought about it. I'll always enjoy a good banter. And if you haven't seen it, then go out and check it. I'm pretty sure that you'll appreciate this film for the creative masterpiece that it is. And please, bite me with a subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. I have a lot more content coming your way. Interviews, reviews, and rants, all that kind of stuff coming to you soon. So watch this space. And if you happen to be in the suburb of Soho, you go and visit one of those pubs and have yourself a cold pint on your good old pal Den. Stay safe, stay happy, and most of all, stay home.